Reports suggest Caracas is testing Trump's blockade threat while rejecting it as illegitimate. Some reporting claims naval vessels were nearby during departures, but ship tracking alone cannot confirm an escort, and Caracas has not confirmed an order. Reports suggest Caracas is testing Trump's blockade threat while rejecting it as illegitimate. Some reporting claims naval vessels were nearby during departures, but ship tracking alone cannot confirm an escort, and Caracas has not confirmed an order. Reuters reported at least 2 byproduct tankers departed for Europe and South America, while separate crude cargoes were later cleared to sail for China. The ships were carrying oil-related byproducts like petroleum, coke, and methanol, according to ship tracking data and PDVSA documents. Caracas frames the move as sovereignty and resistance to pressure. Any military response remains unspecified and unconfirmed. Analysts warn it could raise the risk of an incident at sea if interdictions meet armed presence. If an escort is confirmed, analysts say it could shift the dispute from economics toward higher seas friction. Venezuela had largely absorbed American pressure without responding in kind. That restraint now appears to be tested. If an escort is confirmed, analysts say it would be an unusual step in this standoff. It could shift what had been an economic dispute into potential confrontation. Some crude shipments are bound for China, while byproduct shipments reported by Reuters were bound for Europe and South America. These markets represent Venezuela's economic lifeline. Caracas appears to be signaling it will protect them. For months, Maduro had largely avoided responding with force, even as the Trump administration intensified pressure. An international law scholar told Reuters the moves test presidential authority and raise legal questions. Venezuela's oil exports are the backbone of its economy. Venezuela is widely cited as holding the world's largest proven oil reserves, including by major energy trackers. Without oil revenue, the government cannot pay for imports, maintain social programs, or sustain its operations. This follows the U.S. seizure of a sanctioned oil tanker, plus Trump's tanker blockade order. U.S. officials say the seizure shows they are willing to enforce sanctions at sea. Caracas had to decide whether to accept this new reality or push back. Venezuela appears to have chosen to push back. If the deployment of naval escorts is confirmed, it sends a clear message. Any future seizure attempts would have to contend with Venezuelan military presence. This raises the stakes. What began as economic pressure through sanctions has now evolved into something more tense. Both sides have assets in the region. The potential for miscalculation has increased. Analysts warn the risk of a clash rises if U.S. forces try to board or seize an escorted vessel. The presence of Venezuelan naval vessels near tankers creates scenarios that did not exist before. If American forces attempt to intercept a vessel accompanied by Venezuelan warships, the potential for an incident becomes real. It could become a serious naval incident if boarding attempts happen near armed ships. The stakes are significant. An armed clash between U.S. and Venezuelan forces would mark a dramatic escalation with unpredictable consequences. Russia and China have voiced diplomatic backing for Caracas, but direct involvement remains unclear. Venezuela has declared it will defend its sovereignty. The question now is whether Washington is prepared to test that resolve. Trump says the goal is to interdict sanctioned tankers. Critics say the effect is to squeeze oil revenue. Oil exports account for the vast majority of Venezuela's foreign exchange earnings. Caracas and its allies call this economic warfare, while Washington frames it as sanctions enforcement to cut off revenue. By blocking Venezuela's ability to sell its oil, the administration aims to pressure the Maduro government financially. Venezuela is widely cited as holding the world's largest proven oil reserves, including by major energy trackers. It should be one of the wealthiest countries in the hemisphere. But years of U.S. sanctions have already strained the economy. The blockade represents an intensification of this pressure. A sharper export disruption could worsen shortages and prices, economists warn, though the scale is still uncertain. Trump argues the move targets sanctioned shipping tied to terrorism and drug smuggling claims. Caracas denies it and calls it economic pressure. Venezuelan officials, including Defense Minister Padrino López, argue the U.S. is using security claims as cover for oil pressure. Those are government claims and cannot be independently verified. This framing matters. If the operation is about counterterrorism, it can be presented as law enforcement. If it is about oil and regime change, it looks more like pressure for political ends. The debate over framing will continue, but for now, the standoff is real. U.S. officials have not publicly detailed rules of enforcement, leaving key operational questions unanswered. It remains uncertain whether the U.S. military would take the lead or whether the Coast Guard and other law enforcement agencies would spearhead the operation. This question is not merely bureaucratic. It has legal implications. Coast Guard operations under law enforcement authorities are treated differently under international law than Navy operations, which carry more explicit military connotations. The lack of clarity creates uncertainty. When enforcement protocols are unclear, the potential for incidents rises. For Venezuela, this ambiguity may provide an opening. By acting while Washington debates, Caracas can establish facts on the water. Every cargo that leaves successfully demonstrates the limits of the blockade. Trump's announcement focused on sanctioned tankers. How exactly the blockade would be enforced remains unclear. Trump stated, just a blockade, not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. This framing is significant. Targeting sanctioned tankers is a more defined operation than a total blockade. But the situation remains tense. Even a limited enforcement operation could lead to confrontation if Venezuelan naval vessels are nearby. Trump has repeated extraordinary claims about Venezuelan resources. According to the president, Venezuela stole oil rights and other assets from the United States. Trump stated, "You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it." Trump continued, "Getting land, oil rights, whatever we had, they took it away because we had a president that maybe wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies down and we want it back." These claims have been rejected by Venezuela as historically inaccurate. Venezuelan officials point out that the country nationalized its oil industry decades ago, a sovereign right recognized under international law. The impact of the U.S. pressure is already visible. Reports say oil tankers are sitting offshore as shipping companies weigh seizure risk after the U.S. intercepted a sanctioned vessel last week. Critics say the strategy is to deter shipping through seizure risk, even without stopping every ship. By creating fear of seizure, the blockade does not need to physically stop every vessel. The threat alone disrupts trade. But Venezuela's reported naval presence strategy is designed to counter this. If ships can move with military vessels nearby, the deterrent effect may diminish. The standoff is now playing out in real time. Some ships reportedly leave with escorts. Others remain idle. The outcome will determine whether Venezuela can maintain its oil trade or whether Washington's pressure succeeds. Russia has issued warnings about the escalation. Peskov said the situation is a dangerous escalation and urged restraint, according to Russian readouts carried by international media. The Kremlin stated, "We are seeing an escalation of tensions in the region. We consider this potentially very dangerous." This is not diplomatic boilerplate. Public reporting describes major Russian energy interests in Venezuela, though exact totals vary by estimate. Russian military equipment has been provided to the Venezuelan armed forces. Moscow views Venezuela as a strategic partner. The warning reflects concern. An incident between the United States and Venezuela could spiral in ways that affect Russian interests. Moscow is signaling that it is paying close attention and that Washington should proceed with caution. The Kremlin emphasized that Russia maintains close ties with Venezuela. Officials stated, "Venezuela is our ally, our partner, and we maintain constant contacts, including, as you know, high-level contacts." President Vladimir Putin has spoken with President Maduro, according to Russian statements. Officials confirmed President Putin recently had a telephone conversation with President Maduro, and of course, we are calling on all countries in the region to exercise maximum restraint so as to avoid any kind of unpredictable development of the situation. Russia is not merely observing from afar, it is actively engaged with its ally. The conversation reportedly covered the scope of the crisis. This call for restraint is directed primarily at Washington. Russia is positioning itself as advocating for stability while framing the United States as creating risk. Russia's foreign ministry went further, expressing hope that the Trump administration does not make what it called a fatal mistake. The wording reads as a warning. How far Moscow would go remains unclear. For Russia, Venezuela represents more than an economic partner. It is a presence in the Western Hemisphere, a demonstration that U.S. influence in Latin America is not absolute. Moscow has signaled it will not abandon this ally without cost. The Kremlin is urging countries across Latin America to show restraint, warning of unpredictable consequences for the entire Western Hemisphere. The message from Moscow is clear. Back away before this turns into something far bigger. Russia claims the escalation is deliberate and concerning. Moscow strongly opposes what it describes as unilateral decisions that threaten international shipping. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi criticized unilateral bullying and voiced support for Venezuela's sovereignty, according to Reuters. The Chinese Foreign Ministry stated the Chinese side firmly opposes all unilateral acts of bullying and supports all countries in defending their national sovereignty and dignity. This language is significant. China is not merely expressing concern, it is explicitly opposing U.S. actions and framing them as bullying. This positions Beijing alongside Caracas diplomatically. China has energy and financing exposure in Venezuela, which helps explain its diplomatic stance. Chinese companies have provided significant loans to Venezuela in exchange for oil. A U.S. blockade threatens these arrangements. China's statement went beyond criticism of the United States. Beijing explicitly defended Venezuela's right to pursue its own path. Chinese officials stated, Venezuela has the inherent right to pursue its own independent development and to foster mutually beneficial cooperation with all other nations. This is a direct challenge to Washington's approach. The United States claims to be protecting democracy and fighting drug trafficking. China says Venezuela has the right to develop however it chooses, free from outside pressure. Beijing added, we firmly believe that the international community will understand and fully support Venezuela's legitimate position in safeguarding its sovereign rights and national interests. China said it supports Venezuela's push for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. This elevates the dispute to the highest level of international diplomacy. As a permanent member of the Security Council with veto power, China can block any resolution that might legitimize U.S. actions against Venezuela. The move also internationalizes the conflict. What Washington may have hoped would remain a bilateral dispute is now becoming a broader diplomatic confrontation. Russia and China are using international institutions to challenge American policy. For now, Beijing has stopped short of pledging direct military assistance, but diplomatic support at the UN is significant. It signals that Venezuela is not alone. President Maduro has responded to the blockade with defiance. His message to Venezuelans and to the world is categorical. Maduro stated, "We are standing on our own land. We are acting within our legitimate rights, and we are defending the most sacred possession a nation can have, the fundamental right to a future for its young boys, for its young girls, for all its families, and for its entire population." The president was emphatic. Simply put, that will never, ever happen. Never, never, never in the life Venezuela will be a colony of nothing, of no one ever. This language connects the current crisis to centuries of colonial history in Latin America. Venezuela's founding narrative is one of liberation from foreign domination. Maduro is framing resistance to U.S. pressure as a continuation of that struggle. Maduro revealed what he says are the true U.S. demands. According to the Venezuelan president, Washington is claiming ownership of Venezuelan resources. Maduro stated, "Today I spoke with the UN Secretary General. I had a very long talk and I fully explained to him the escalation of aggressions and threats that has taken place." Maduro continued, "What has occurred yesterday and today when the United States government claims that it belongs to them and that we, the Venezuelan people, have stolen their oil. What that means is that Venezuela's oil belongs to them and that all of Venezuela's minerals, the gold and every other mineral, belong to them." Most strikingly, Maduro claimed, and what we had never ever heard before, that the territories of Venezuela actually belong to them and we are now forced to return them to them without any delay. Maduro characterized U.S. intentions in stark terms. According to the Venezuelan president, Washington seeks regime change to install a government that would serve American interests. Maduro stated, "It is quite simply and without any doubt a clear manifestation of a warmongering and colonialist agenda. And we have said this quite often, and now everyone can see the truth. The truth has finally been revealed." Maduro continued, "In Venezuela, a regime change is being sought to impose a puppet government that would not last even 47 hours, that would come to hand over our constitution, our sovereignty, and all our national wealth and turn Venezuela into a mere colony." This framing positions the current confrontation as existential. According to Maduro, what is at stake is not just his government, but Venezuela's independence as a nation. Maduro claimed the U.S. pressure has produced the opposite of its intended effect. Rather than dividing Venezuela, it has united the country. Maduro stated, "Today I can truly say that Venezuela has achieved the most powerful level of national unity that we have ever experienced in our history." The president explained what this unity is for, and this national unity has only one objective: to ensure that international law is respected, to ensure that national sovereignty is respected by exercising it, and to ensure that the right to peace, to life, and to the future of Venezuela is respected. Maduro addressed the question of war directly. "War. We have unequivocally stated our refusal. The overwhelming majority of the population is completely and utterly opposed to any form of military intervention. They are saying in the United States interventionism must finally come to an end." Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino López responded directly to Trump's claims about stolen resources. His message was pointed. Padrino López stated, "This is truly an outrageous situation. This is absolutely unacceptable. The claim that Venezuela is stealing land from the United States, that Venezuela is stealing petroleum from the United States, that Venezuela is actually stealing other assets from the United States." The defense minister addressed Trump directly. "For God's sake, Mr. President, please review the history. Review the history." Padrino López then asked a question that Venezuela says Trump cannot answer. "Explain the lands to me because I want to know when Venezuela stole land from the United States." Padrino López made sweeping historical accusations about U.S. exploitation. He did not present independent evidence in the remarks we have seen. The defense minister stated that American cities were built using Venezuelan resources. These are government claims and cannot be independently verified from the remarks alone. Venezuela frames this as a counter-narrative to Trump's claims. In this framing, Venezuela is not the party that took from the other. The United States is. This historical interpretation is central to how Caracas presents the current confrontation. Padrino López issued a stark warning about the consequences of military action against Venezuela. The defense minister stated, "But listen very carefully, not one single drop. What oil can leave from here for the United States if they attack Venezuela? Not even a single drop under any circumstances whatsoever." This is both a threat and a statement of resolve. Venezuela is making clear that an attack would not achieve Washington's goal of accessing Venezuelan oil. It would do the opposite. If the United States wants Venezuelan oil, confrontation is not the path to obtaining it. An attack would ensure that no oil flows to American markets. Venezuela is betting that this economic reality will serve as deterrence. Padrino López placed the current confrontation in broader historical context. The defense minister stated, "Now pay very close attention to this, won't you? Because the entire history of America has been absolutely full of invasions. Yes, invasions. Who? Tell me who has consistently invaded the peoples here throughout Latin America? The United States." Caracas points to a long history of U.S. intervention in the region to frame today's standoff. This historical framing resonates throughout Latin America, where many view past interventions critically. Venezuela is positioning the current confrontation as another potential chapter in this history. The question is whether Washington will proceed despite these warnings. Maduro invoked the legacy of Simón Bolívar, the liberator of much of South America from Spanish rule. Maduro stated, "We are here to declare to the government of the United States of America and to its current president that we absolutely refuse to be intimidated by their crude, their arrogant, and their overbearing threats." The president continued, "Bolívar himself, along with so many other illustrious heroes of American emancipation, taught us how to fight and to defeat powerful empires, and that the dignity of this homeland cannot be negotiated, nor will it ever be intimidated by absolutely anyone." This Bolivarian framing connects current resistance to Venezuela's founding narrative. The country was born in struggle against empire. Maduro is positioning the current confrontation as a continuation of that legacy. Venezuela declared that its military and civilian institutions stand united in defense of sovereignty. Padrino López stated, "This outcome clearly constitutes an act of aggression, and we therefore denounce it to the entire international community and its various multilateral bodies. They must reflect and take action against this insane warmongering attitude, which jeopardizes not only Venezuela, but also the entire Latin American and Caribbean region and global energy stability." The defense minister continued, "Without giving in to any provocations, alongside the Venezuelan people and in a perfect popular military and police integration, it will defend at all costs the current constitutional and democratic system, as well as the territorial integrity of the country." Venezuela is presenting a united front. According to official statements, there is no daylight between the government and the military. Padrino López concluded with a statement of Venezuela's commitment to defending itself while seeking peace. The defense minister stated, "It will defend its legitimate rights over its air and maritime spaces, and in an unyielding manner it will uphold its freedom, sovereignty, independence, and peace." Maduro added, "And that right to peace and to life will be respected." Venezuela is positioning itself as the party seeking peace while the United States applies pressure. The government demands that international law be the basis for resolving this confrontation, not American military power. The message to the world is clear. Venezuela will defend itself, but it seeks a peaceful resolution based on respect for sovereignty. What began as economic pressure is raising the risk of a maritime incident. Reports suggest Venezuelan naval vessels may be accompanying some oil cargoes. U.S. officials are weighing their response. The ingredients for a tense situation are present. As U.S. pressure tightens, as some tankers sit idle, and as rival powers voice support for Caracas, a regional standoff appears to be forming. The situation has evolved rapidly from economic sanctions to potential confrontation. Both sides appear to be calculating the other's resolve. Washington is testing whether Maduro will back down under pressure. Caracas is testing whether the U.S. is willing to risk an incident. So far, neither side has blinked. Venezuela has signaled it will defend its trade. The United States has not yet attempted to intercept a vessel with reported escort, but the situation remains fluid. With reports of Venezuelan naval presence near oil vessels, what began as economic pressure is raising the risk of a maritime standoff. The next encounter at sea could determine whether this crisis remains diplomatic or turns more dangerous. Washington's next move could decide whether this confrontation remains diplomatic or escalates. The Trump administration must decide how far it is willing to go. For Venezuela, the stakes are significant. Maduro has framed this as a struggle for sovereignty and independence. Backing down is not something he appears willing to consider. Russia has warned of a potential fatal mistake. China has criticized unilateral bullying. Venezuela has declared it will never be a colony and that not one single drop of oil will go to the United States if attacked. The coming days will reveal whether this standoff can be resolved through diplomacy or whether it will escalate further. The world is watching, and the next developments at sea could change everything.